Hello guys, I'm Tom, and today we're going to take a look at The Raft. There are stories that don't need to scream to chill your blood. They don't aim to shock you with gore or cheap jump scares. Their method is slower, more calculated, like a single drop falling again and again in the same spot, until you realize you can no longer ignore it. Stephen King masters that art. Among all his works, there's one that embodies this quiet disturbance with surgical precision. The Raft. It's not just a short story. It's a plunge, without a life jacket, into raw, intimate, human fear. The kind of horror you never see coming, but that, once it arrives, never leaves. The story starts with a deceptively light tone. It almost feels like the beginning of a teen comedy. 4 college students, Randy, Deke, Rachel, and Laverne, decide to take one last trip before winter locks them into academic routine. They're heading to a remote lake, hidden somewhere in the forgotten corners of Pennsylvania, a place with no supervision, no adults, no rules. Just them, the cold water, and the echo of a freedom that already smells like goodbye. The drive is short, but it's charged with that chaotic, half-sensual energy that only youth can create. They tease, they laugh, they exchange glances that say more than they're willing to admit. Arriving at the lake feels like the beginning of a story they'd someday recall with nostalgia, if they had the chance. Floating in the middle of the lake is an old, time-rusted structure, a wooden raft. No warning signs, no indication that anyone even knows it exists. But to them, it looks like a hidden prize, a chance to play at being kids one more time. They swim out to it. They play. They push each other around. Everything seems harmless, but beneath those waters, something breathes. Something lurks. Randy notices it first. An unusual movement, a dark, thick shape, like spilled oil, gliding across the water with an intelligence of its own. At first, he rationalizes it. Maybe it's a stain, an optical illusion, algae. But then they see the duck, a helpless creature, caught in that substance, sinking without so much as a quack. They try to ignore it, to convince themselves there's no danger. But it's already too late. The raft, once a refuge, becomes a prison. And the lake, the executioner waiting in silence. Rachel is the first victim. All it takes is the slightest touch of her fingertips against that oily blot for hell to be unleashed. The substance reacts like a starving predator. It clings to her skin, crawls up her body as she screams, and no one can do anything. It drags her slowly into the water, tearing her apart from within, as if dissolving her molecule by molecule. There's no fighting it. All you can do is watch. All you can do is scream. Inside, Deke, blinded by desperation, tries to swim to shore. He believes his strength, his youth, his arrogance can save him. But the creature pulls him under in an instant, dismembering him without effort. There's no room left for denial. They're trapped. Time becomes another enemy. The light fades. The cold seeps into their bones. Laverne drifts in and out of sleep. Randy tries to stay strong, but fear settles over the raft like a third passenger. Constant, silent, unrelenting. They take turns keeping watch, fighting sleep, resisting surrender. They become shadows of who they were at the start. Youth dissolves, replaced by the animal instinct to simply survive. And just when it seems there might be a flicker of hope, tragedy strikes once again. Laverne, in a moment of closeness, of desperate tenderness, lies down next to Randy. The most human, warm, real moment becomes her death sentence. A lock of her hair brushes the water. That's all it takes. The creature senses her, takes her. Randy, broken, knows he can't save her. All he can do is end her suffering. And he does. He pushes her into the water, like someone casting a final, desperate prayer into the void. Now he's alone. Just Randy. Alone. On a floating rectangle. that's no longer a raft, but a suspended tomb. The water has swallowed everything he loved, everything he knew. There's no strategy that matters, no scream that will set him free. The creature never sleeps. It only waits. And when Randy finally lets his guard down, when his mind gives in to exhaustion, he decides to face it. He stands, walks to the edge, and looks it in the eye, like someone who accepts an inevitable fate, like someone who knows he's lost everything. The story ends there. No redemption, no answers, no justice, only the silence of a lake that once again appears calm, as if nothing had ever happened. In 1987, the story was adapted for film by George A. Romero as part of Creepshow 2, the anthology he helped shape into a pulp horror reference. The adaptation remained true to the spirit of the tale, though it was more explicit in certain scenes, and featured a different ending. But the essence survived. The anguish, the inescapability, the unexplained creature, and the intimate portrait of existential terror. The Raft doesn't need an apocalypse or an invasion or a global threat. It only needs a single idea. Being trapped in the middle of nowhere, facing something you can't understand, with no one coming to help you. What do you do when your world shrinks to a square of wood? What choices do you make when the slightest mistake is fatal? That's the true heart of this story. It's not the monster that hurts the most. It's what it reveals about us. Who we are when we're alone. What we're willing to do to live, or to die just a little faster. Because sometimes, fear doesn't need to raise its voice. It only has to whisper, and that's enough to destroy us from the inside. In the film adaptation of The Raft, part of the 1987 Creepshow 2 anthology, directed by Michael Gornick and produced by George A. Romero, the lake creature takes on a visual presence that is as hypnotic as it is horrific, a dark manifestation that terrifies not only through what it does, but through what it implies. Unlike many louder, more explicit horrors, this entity presents itself as a walking contradiction, a figure without body, without face, without voice, and yet capable of completely dominating the scene from the very first moment. From its first appearance, it leaves an indelible impression. It doesn't need to roar, nor emerge with a crash. It arrives silently and clinically, swallowing a duck floating innocently near the raft without effort. There's no threatening music, no warnings. It just happens. And while the camera remains still, observing from a distance, the characters swim happily, laughing, oblivious to what lurks beneath the surface. This disconnect between horror and innocence is central to this adaptation. The audience already knows they're doomed, they just don't yet. The creature manifests as a viscous stain, black as oil, with undulating edges and constant movement. There is something deeply unnatural about the way it glides. It doesn't paddle, it doesn't float. It slides, as if the very logic of water bends around it. Its surface shimmers with iridescent hues, almost beautiful, like the feathers of an exotic bird or oil spilled in a puddle after the rain. And therein lies part of its horror. It is visually seductive, almost hypnotic, designed, it seems, to be looked at before it consumes. Rachel, a victim of her own curiosity and the human impulse to look too long, gets too close. One single touch, a fraction of a second, is enough for the entity to cling to her like a second skin. In a matter of seconds, her body is absorbed into a grotesque dance of disintegration, where pain seems endless, and her scream is more a signal of despair than a cry for help. Her friends can do nothing. Terror paralyzes more than the creature itself. The next victim, Deke, dies in an even more brutal fashion. In a scene that blends tension, violence, and sheer dread, the creature grabs him from beneath the raft. It snatches his ankle and drags him, like human bait, into the depths. Bones crack. His body contorts in a final spasm. The camera doesn't look away, and that's one of the visual triumphs of this adaptation. It doesn't only show physical horror, it lingers on the emotional reaction of those who remain. The audience suffers with them, not just because of what is seen, but because of what is imagined to come next. Night brings no relief. It only sharpens the torment. Randy stays awake, eyes hollow, while Laverne sleeps beside him, seeking the smallest comfort in human warmth, some fragile truce with the incomprehensible. But even that moment, so intimate and quiet, becomes the prelude to another tragedy. In an attempt to reposition her, Randy shifts a rotting plank on the raft, opening a barely visible gap. It's all the creature needs. Like a liquid shadow, it seeps in from below, grabbing Laverne before she can even scream. It's a death that unfolds almost in slow motion, and in it lies the essence of what makes this creature so terrifying. Its patience, its precision, its inevitability. Randy is left alone, and although Stephen King's original story ends with his total surrender to the creature, the film grants him one last spark of hope, or at least the illusion of it. Waiting for the moment when the creature seems distracted, digesting its last victim, Randy leaps off the raft and swims furiously toward the shore. He makes it, crawls across the wet ground, exhausted, delirious, but alive. And then, in a desperate act of defiance, he turns back and yells at the monster. "I beat you." It's a moment of euphoria, of catharsis. But it's also his final mistake. The creature, as if answering the challenge, rises like a living wave, a black, expanding mass, and engulfs him in a second. Randy vanishes. There is no salvation, no heroes, only the calm of the lake, once again. And it is in that calm where the true cruelty of the ending resides. The student's car is still parked nearby, radio playing. The world hasn't stopped. No one came looking. No one will ever know what happened. Only the audience sees the sign that was there all along, half hidden in the brush. No swimming. A warning ignored. A tragedy inevitable. One often overlooked detail is the shift in geography. While the original story takes place in a lake in Pennsylvania, the film moves the events to a lake in Idaho, an even more remote and rugged setting. This choice amplifies the sense of abandonment and utter hopelessness. There are no nearby houses, no visible roads, only wilderness, and something that should not be there. Now, with both versions laid out, the inevitable question arises: what is this creature? Known by fans as the lake stain or the black slime, this entity defies any standard biological classification. It doesn't seem to be an animal, a plant, or a bacterium. It is more like a life form with unstable physical properties and a very clear destructive agenda. Its gelatinous structure suggests evolution from organisms like amoebas or jellyfish. But its behavior goes beyond. It stalks, it waits, it attacks with surgical precision. It seems to understand, or at least anticipate. Some compare the creature to the Blob, the classic alien entity that devours everything in its path. Others take it further, linking it to the Shoggoths of H.P. Lovecraft. Formless, primordial beings capable of adapting, hiding, and corrupting any environment they enter. What's most disturbing is that its origin is never explained. Its presence is never justified. It just is. And there's an even stranger connection. In South American folklore, particularly in Chile and Argentina, there are tales of El Cuero, a mythological lake creature shaped like a stretched-out skin that moves on its own. It lurks beneath the surface, striking by wrapping itself around its victims and dragging them down. Its similarities to the lake stain are chilling. The shape, the stealth, the method of attack, even the impossibility of escape once it touches someone. Whatever its nature may be, the truth is that the creature embodies an ancient idea of fear. The unknown abyss, the faceless threat, death that comes without logic or purpose. Its power lies not only in its ability to kill, but in how it forces its victims to confront their deepest vulnerability, to stay still, to wait, to surrender. And perhaps that's why The Raft continues to linger in the viewer's mind as an unforgettable story, because it's not just about a creature that devours bodies, but about another monster, far more real, that lives inside all of us. The certainty that, when the time comes, we are completely alone,